Center, November 660 Whiskey Alpha, level at 13,000.
November 660 Whiskey Alpha. Roger, you've got monitor extreme precipitation at your 12 o'clock and 20 miles. Advise if you need to deviate.
And Wash Center, November 660 Whiskey Alpha, we are above the weather and we'll stay the course.
Well, church, this is a great work that we are invested in, so let's stay the course. I got to tell you, we are in a fantastic church. You guys are absolutely awesome. When I see everything that God is doing in and through us, I say, I want to be part of it. And you know, every year we take 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, every year, just 2 weeks, and we talk about our current status of the church, our vision of the church, where we're going, and all the great things that God is doing in and through our church. And then we ask you, how do you want to partner with us? Because we want to be part of what God is building, and what God is building is His church. Let me just say this. Everything on the earth revolves around the church. Not government, the church. Everything revolves around the church. Can I get, I feel you. You got to know that, or otherwise you could become discouraged by a lot of current events in the world today. I'm not discouraged. The church looks great today. I'm feeling great, and I'm ready to keep moving forward and staying the course. At the end of this message, we're going to have Greg Rowe come up. He's our CFO. He's going to give us an encouraging report as he did last week, and so I'm looking forward to that. The title of the message today in this two-part series is Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Come on now. I know them are fighting words, and this church needs some fighting in it. Now, I mean good fighting, okay? You got to have a fight in you, because there's a lot of stuff that life throws at you. And you got to make sure that you face life with your shoulders squared back and a holy backbone in you, being ready to fight the enemy with anything that he might use to take you down. You can't get down on your knees and just kind of curl up and hide from him. No, you've got to have a backbone. And so that's why I've titled this message, and I think it's appropriate for the church, Hit Me With Your Best Shot. This is onward Christian soldiers, not onward Christian sissies. We are soldiers in the army of the Lord. I know we've got a lot of grace that God gives us. And let me just say this, that grace is an eternal fix for your soul. But grace is not what keeps the church winning. It's the fight that it has in it that keeps it winning. Jesus will save your eternal soul with his grace, but you got to have some fight to win from day to day. So I want to march right into our text this morning. I love this story that I'm going to talk about because it awakens the soldier in us. Oh, I'm feeling a fight coming on here right now. I have to give you some of the backstory, though, of this text. Moses has led God's people, the Israelites, out of bondage, out of captivity, and they were slaves in Egypt. And so Moses tells Pharaoh to let my people go. After that, they experience miracle after miracle after a miracle. It's just amazing, some of the things that happened there. I don't want to talk about all them today. There's too many to talk about. But they're headed to the land that God has promised them. And in this land that they get to, just a short journey from captivity to the land that God has promised them, and Moses sends out 12 spies. 10 of the spies come back with a bad report. 2 of the spies come back with a good report. Joshua is one of those spies, and we're going to talk about Joshua here in a little bit. But Joshua, he is saying, we are more than able to go and take the country and to take the land that God has promised us. The other 10, they're saying, oh yeah, it's a great land. It would be awesome to live there. But the armies of that land, they're like giants. And we are like grasshoppers in their sight. And there's no way. We would just go down there for a slaughter because they always destroy their enemies. And Joshua is pleading and begging with the people, no, 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 we are more than able. Joshua's got a fight in him. But we find out that the people listen to the 10 with a bad report. Numbers 14 and verse 1 says the whole community began weeping aloud. All of them, all the Israelites, they began weeping aloud, and they cried all night. Sissies. If only we had died in Egypt, they said, or even here in the wilderness, they complained. Well, this draws a response from God. Numbers 14:28. God says, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very things I heard you say. Our words are powerful. I want you to think of just what you said this morning, getting ready and coming to church. I want you to think of what worship team, I know there's a lot to put together for a worship service. I want you to think of things that you've already said. Because there is power in your words. Husband, wife, what is it that you've said about your spouse this past week? There's power in your words. There was power, there was life and death in the tongue of these Israelites. Numbers 14:29. God says this, you'll all drop dead in this wilderness because you complained against me. Every one of you who is 20 years old, everybody say 20 years old. Every one of you who is 20 years old or older will die. And they did. I've always said that was a great day to be a teenager. Because complaining is a death trap. Complaining is a death trap. I just want you to know I'm not available for complaints. That's Pastor Emmett's department. But I am available for cookouts and barbecues. What would it sound like if these parents of the Israelites were living today? Oh, the government is driving this country into the ground. They're stealing our kids' future, and how will our children ever make it? And they're going to be slaves to taxes, and if the government doesn't fix health care, we're all gonna die in this country. Listen to me, teenagers. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't matter if Democrats or Republicans or independents control the House or control government. What's important is who's in your house. What's important is that you know and understand who you are. You're a child of the King. Your citizenship is in heaven. No one can steal your future. You live by a promise. You don't live by government. You don't live by laws. You don't live by their rules. You live by God's promise, and no one can take that away. You are on the winning side. You see, when you know that, you can have a fight in you. You can have a determination and a strength in you that says, I can go through life being the winner that God has called me to be. Back to our story. 38 years have passed. Parents dead. Teenagers grown up. Trained and ready for battle. They're saying that they're going to do what their parents complained about. And this brings us to our text for the message today, Joshua 1:1. The time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land I am giving them. I love that part. The time has come. I believe the time has come for this church. Verse 5, no one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. What is that? That's a promise for a lifetime. I love that. No one can stand against you as long as you live. Verse 9, this is my command. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. It's a simple solution for winning, folks. I want you to say it with me. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. The other 400 of you, be strong and courageous. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Now, hear the reply of this generation to Joshua. Not the last generation to Moses, but this generation to Joshua. Verse 16. They answered Joshua, we will do whatever you commanded us. It's no doubt that they will do it. They watched their parents die from complaining. We will do whatever you command us, and we will go wherever you send us. We will obey you, and may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Now, Joshua and Caleb had prophesied of a generation that would enter the promised land, and now God is giving them just what they spoke. There's power in our words. They believed it. Now they've grown up. They're the soldiers, and God is going to give them the land. These teenagers, now soldiers, see, they had a vision of building a city that their God would be worshiped in. That's the vision that these teenagers had. I believe that's the vision that this generation that is growing up in this church and teenagers all across the nation, they have a new vision for the church. There's been a lot of teenagers that seen their parents not get the job done, not pave the way for their success, not the church and the leadership in the church is not giving them a platform for them to be able to win. But they've grown up and they've said, you know what? We're gonna build a city, not a church. If we couldn't do it in the church, then we'll just do it out on the streets. We're gonna build a city that our God will be worshiped in. You know, God wasn't so much interested about what was happening on the Sunday morning services. But God was interested in what was happening in the city because, you see, Jesus is a big city thinker. And this is the kind of mindset that the church has to have. We've got to be thinking about the city. I love the vision of these teenagers. They weren't going to take over a building or a synagogue. They were going to take over a country. You see, they believed that God and the anointing and the power of Jesus and the Holy Spirit that was within them and flowing through them gave them authority over the land, that they should be the ones that are looked to for the governing of the land. It's an amazing vision that they had. And so they believed that they could take the promised land that God told them that they could take. This brings me to a great point. Every church needs a promised land. If you don't have a promised land, you're not pursuing anything. And if you're not pursuing anything, you're not winning. And I'm declaring this is where our church is with our vision of the Performing Arts Center and the Civic Center up there on the hill. I believe the time has come. And if it doesn't happen this year, next year at this same time, I'll be saying the time has come. And the year after, I'll say the time has come. Why? Because we are in a great pursuit and we'll not give up. We're never going to give up. You know, I thank God for our elders today that have been with me from the very beginning, Do you know I have never heard any of our elders that are here today that have ever complained about our vision? That have ever complained? Not once. We've not had one single second in a meeting where they've said, what are we gonna do? This isn't looking good. Do you know it took us 14 years to get here? And this vision that we have today, we've had it from day one. 14 years and not one word of doubt from the leaders in this church. Oh, I'm telling you what, I think we ought to give our elders today a big applause. I know I love them, and you should love them too. They're awesome. They constantly remind me of the vision that is ours, and it's going to happen. Joshua 1:9, this is my command, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. How many have ever fought discouragement? I gotta tell you, I've fought some discouragement along the way getting here. Let me just tell you two of the stories about getting into this building. And believe me, there was a lot of other things that we had to fight, battles that we had to win. But when we were out here just excavating the land, there's this big rock that's out here beside the parking lot that some of you've heard me talk about, and a lot of you've not heard me talk about, and you're probably wondering why it's there. It's there because it is the unmovable rock. We had a 50,000-pound excavator against it. Bob had the 963 loader against it, and we clawed at that thing for 2 days, and we got everything broke out behind it where the ditch needed to go. But for some reason, we kept chipping that thing down. It went all the way into the bank. And we kept chipping it down. We got to it being about this wide and this tall, and I'm gonna tell you, the thing wouldn't move. So we stopped and we said, well, man, we're just tearing all the teeth off our equipment. This is getting expensive. And, Bob was saying we could blast the thing out of there, but we stopped and we thought about it. And we said, hey, let's survey where this rock is, because at the edge of the parking lot and the start of the ditch, there's a 2-foot shoulder, and we got this thing down to about 2 foot. So we surveyed it. And do you know that rock was sitting perfectly in between that 2 feet? And I said, well, Bob, this rock isn't a problem at all. We've been wasting all of our energy on this rock, and it can stay here. And so we just left it stay there. Now we'd moved a lot of other rock. Believe me, this is Rock Cliff Drive. We were not surprised by that rock. We had moved a lot of other rock, and it was just like this one was the unmovable rock. So you know what we did? We didn't complain. We was a little bit discouraged, but we sat there and we thought about it for a minute. And I've got something I want the guys to bring out to me right now, because as we looked at that rock, we said, man, there's got to be a reason for this rock being here. And I came up with this statement: this rock remains to remind us of the relentless faith that led us here. On this rock, I will build my church, Jesus. I'm going to tell you right now, Jesus didn't want us to move that rock. Every once in a while, Jesus will leave an obstacle on the ground at the promised land just to remind us of every obstacle that could not stop us. Now, I don't know why I haven't put this out there. I've had this for a year. Okay, here you go. Got to get that thing out there. Actually, there's a couple flag poles that come out of that and some lights, and it's going to look absolutely beautiful, and we're going to monumentalize that plaque and that statement and that fight that the church should have in it. Well, on another day, we were out here and we were leveling out the parking lot just shortly after that. And we got it all level and we got it packed down, and all through the middle of our parking lot, every time we brought the roller over it, you could just tell that there was a lot of water down in the dirt. And so, you know, we were thinking it would dry out. We let it sit there. It just would not dry out. And so I was thinking, man, there must be some kind of underground spring here. You know, we had a lot of water runoff that was running off in that area before we dug our ditches and ran the water around it. And so we decided we're going to have to dig it out. And for 2 days, we dug and dug and dug, and we dug deeper, and load after load after load, a couple of hundred loads later, and we finally got to dry ground. And we had ourselves a massive hole out there. Bob says to me, what are we going to fill that in with? I said, I don't know. And we didn't have any money left in the budget for working on the parking lot to do that part of it. And we figured it out, we needed over 200 loads of dirt to fill that back in. And it's expensive buying dirt. And so we were just sitting out there and we were just looking at the unmovable rock. God is my witness. I walk over to the rock. And I'm just standing there. Can't remember if I was leaning against. I just remember I was next to it, and I said, there's another obstacle, God. And I don't know how we're going to fix this. This is expensive. We could go buy it. We could get behind on the budget. But God, I first want to give you a chance to work. Kid you not, my phone rang a couple hours later, standing over there by the rock. And the contractors that were working on the mall called me and they said, hey, Pastor Kevin, we got your number from the mall manager here. And we've got to dig out 2 feet of dry dirt all across this parking lot. And we don't really want to have to pay to dump it somewhere. Would you be willing to take it for free? And I said, just how much dirt would that be? They said, well, we're not really sure, but it's got to be at least 100 or 200 loads. And they said, do you have trucks? And I said, no, we actually don't. They said, well, if you can get the trucks to run it, we'll load you. And I said, we really don't have the trucks, and that would also cost us money. He said, well, okay, when could you take the dirt? I said, right in about 5 minutes. I'm sitting right by a hole that could be filled in. He says, I'm starting the trucks within the hour. For 2 days, they hauled dirt, 220 loads. Not only did we fix that part, but we fixed our road up through there, and God came through with a miracle. I just say, devil, you go ahead and hit us with your best shot, because every time you swing, we move forward. You got to have some fight in you. Well, I'm not giving up on the dream. God's got a great vision that he has given to this church. And I do believe that not only will we build a facility that will be a great place for us as a church to worship in, but I believe this, it'll be a place for the people of this city to worship God in. Because I do believe in this city, people will worship God.